Well, here's a video I should have done a while back, but I did not catch this. This was posted on the 9th of December, about a couple weeks ago now, or a week and a half. And this is from the BBC, actually, mainstream BBC, but I don't know how I missed this anywhere. Matter of fact, I didn't see anyone else talking about this either, but maybe they did. We'll see. What is big problem Obama supposedly shared with Trump? They're saying in this article that when Barack Obama met with President-elect Donald Trump, they had a little conversation. And the conversation was about something having to do with America having a big problem. And when pressed, Mr. Trump, what is the big problem? I think I'd rather let the president tell you. Something along those lines is what he's saying. So he doesn't even want to say what this quote unquote big problem is. I'm going to read you what the supposed experts are talking about, are going to tell you what they think it might be. And then I'm going to tell you what, old Jason at 4 thinks it might be. And there's two possibilities in my opinion. Okay. So, quote, I was actually surprised. Well, it says Donald Trump said President Barack Obama had told him about a big problem for the U.S., but he wouldn't say what it was. What could it be? Quote, I was actually surprised a little bit, said the president-elect when telling New York Times reporters about his private conversation with the outgoing White House incumbent. He said they had discussed a big problem for the country, but refused to be drawn on the issue, telling journalists, I'd rather have you ask him. A reporter from the Times told me recently they haven't followed up on this matter with the president. Not yet. Now, don't you think if the president-elect came out and said what I just read you, which he did say, and the response is, you should probably ask the current president, since he's the one that told me anyways. Don't you think, wow, he said the United States, the country is facing a big problem that he shared with Donald Trump. Now, naturally, you might say, oh, well, yeah, it's Donald Trump's the big problem. And that's what, again, Barack Obama, the Democrats, that's the problem. No. Barack Obama's not going to tell Donald Trump, yeah, it's you. The country is facing a huge issue, and it's you. Because Donald Trump would have came out and said, oh, this clown just told me, Donald Trump. He would have, can you believe what he said to me? Not even kind of. So it's a legitimate problem, as far as I'm concerned. But he doesn't want to be the one to break the news. I think you should ask him. Again, I'm going to tell you what I think. Two possibilities. And I think one's more probable than the other. For sure, as a matter of fact. Again, in my opinion. When I asked White House spokesman Josh Earnest about the issue, he said he couldn't reveal details of his boss's conversation. So I've turned to 10 experts from the media, political science, government, and other fields and asked what they thought the president said during the important meeting. First and foremost, it wasn't North Korea and nuclear weapons. Ivo Daalder, president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, said, my guess would be North Korea, which will likely be the biggest first crisis the president will face. Thomas Caraco, a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, said that he believes the president may have spoken about a shortcoming of his own administration in the hope that, as Caraco said, the new president may be able to address it. Reporters from the Wall Street Journal agree, as they wrote about North Korea as the president-elect's most pressing issue in a recent article. Okay, so there's a little more to that particular story, but all right, so one expert thinks it's North Korea, nuclear weapons, right? The next one says, well, could be current events. The New Yorker's Hendrik Hertzberg wondered, quote, the electoral college system, perhaps? Robert Kagan, a former Reagan State Official Department aide, joked, "Well, I was going to hold a seance tonight, but the first thing that came to mind was that the big problem was that the country just elected Donald Trump." Exactly. No. Prisons. Time Magazine's Belinda Luscombe said, "Mass incarceration. Nobody wants to spend more money on prisons, but it's like a leaky roof. If you don't fix it, it's going to keep costing you money to fix the damage it's causing to the rest of the house." Next one, a divided nation. Peter Mansour, a military historian at Ohio State University in Columbus, said, "The biggest problem facing the country is the deep and persistent partisan divide that makes political compromise difficult, if not impossible." According to Melissa Mitchelson, a professor of political science in Atherton, California, the subject may have been hate crimes, including incidents of racism, sexism, homophobia, and Islamophobia that became more frequent during the Trump campaign and since election day. I'm sorry, did you say these people are experts? Did I hear you say you reached out to 10 or so different experts, and that's the best they've got so far? At least this one? Jiminy Christmas. And then the final one says, no problem. George Washington University's Michael Cornfield said, the problem is a McGuff, Hitchcock's term for an object that has no intrinsic purpose except to set the characters and the plot in motion. Trump wanted everyone at the New York Times to know he's now privy to the great secrets of the American security state. While New York University's Charlton McEwen, author of Race Appeal, How Candidates Invoke Race in U.S. Political Campaigns, said he believes the following: that he talked about one problem in particular could be an absolute fabrication. It would be perfectly in keeping with Trump's fantasy as fiction reality way of communicating with the public and the press. Right, so what does old Jason Number 4 think about this? Out of all of those choices, there's only one that I would even ponder. And that was nothing about North Korea, because it said North Korea and nuclear weapons. You see, China is not real happy with us right now. However, you could argue, well, they're not happy with us because Trump's taking over and he's pretty much voiced his issues with China. We're going to tariff them. We're taking our jobs back, etc. We're buying America again, buy American instead of foreign. But for the current president, Obama, to say the United States, the country's facing a problem that he shared with Donald Trump, I don't think all of a sudden this problem just came up and he told Trump, well, it's because of your quote-unquote rhetoric with China. And no, can't go there. So this guy said, North Korea nuclear weapons. Here's the issue on that. We've been hearing about North Korea and nuclear weapons about as long as, maybe longer, than Iran and its nuclear weapons. John Warmonger McCain, bomb, 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 Iran. You moron. These people don't care about global war. They don't care if World War III starts. They just, let's do it, make money doing it, go to war. So that is the best choice of everything I heard so far. Nuclear issue and or North Korea. But the way it was presented was like North Korea and their nuclear issue, not the whole world's nuclear issue. Again, China and Russia are good friends. They're on good terms. Trump, clearly, especially with his new Secretary of State pick, the oil dude, Exxon, these guys are good with Putin, which means, any friend of so-and-so is a friend of mine, right? And I understand China's stance about Trump, but I don't think it's going to be a quote-unquote big concern, big problem for the country, as he said. So my take, one of two things. Do you remember was it the foreign minister, prime minister, France? Remember that a couple years ago? We have 500 days until major climate change comes, and by then there's no turning back. We're expecting a big event. Remember that one? I'm going to have to assume he was rounding off 500 days because that has come and gone, obviously. But what has happened? We had, what was it? It was like 32 degrees below normal. This was about a week ago. It was 32 degrees below the normal temperature for this time of the year. And it was in the U.S. I don't remember which part of the U.S. or which state. I did mention it the other day. So that's not a little bit like, oh, we're 10 degrees cooler than normal. That's a lot. 32? That's insane if you want to know the truth of me. So I wonder if there's something to that, this quote unquote climate change. But notice Barack said the United States, the country, is facing a big problem. That kind of could go along and say, well, the whole world's facing a problem. Climate change isn't just for the United States, correct? However, it would affect us greatly, so it's kind of a possibility. But the one that I think he might be referring to, this is my number one choice. Of course, it's from me anyways, but out of the one I just gave you in this one, this is my number one choice. Economic problems. We are bankrupt as a country. We've been bankrupt. We've been papering over everything, printing money, Federal Reserve, everything's fine, massive rally in the markets. I feel like this is the final hoorah for the markets. As I said before, Cliff High, his webbot, he had a conversation years and years and years ago when he was buddy with George Ure. I did mention this the other day. And they were having a conversation about theories on maybe the data they were looking at, and Cliff High said, his take was that we would see Dow Jones 20,000 before this next big crash would occur. And George Ure thought it would be like 14,000 or 16,000 or whatever. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But nonetheless, they had this conversation. That's the important part, as well as Cliff High saying 20,000 Dow. Ladies and gentlemen, we are practically touching 20,000 Dow right now. I mean, 19.9, whatever it was, the high. Unbelievable. Is that the problem? Is that the problem we're facing? These markets, they've rigged everything. They've papered over everything. They've pumped them all up. Everything is artificial. There's no more real market. Houston, we got a problem. And it's our country that's going to be affected greatly because our dollar has been the world's reserve currency for a very long time, and it's on its way out. What happens? Remember the book. Stand by, because you may have forgot this until I show it to you, and you say, oh, I forgot about that. Thanks, Jay Snip. That's why we tune in, because you bring little tidbits back that we forgot about. And you know what I say to that? I don't know how the hell I just thought of it, to tell you the truth, because I forget a lot of stuff as much things as I read. Stand by. Okay, so I found it. This was in 2009. Obama's reading material. He was stepping off Air Force One, whatever, and he had his book in his hand. The book is titled The Post-American World. He was reading it, okay? So I went to Amazon, found the book, 4.5 stars on the book. And someone's comment, because I never read this book, the decline of the U.S. over the past 30 years has come about because of very deliberate policies. Globalization was a concerted effort by large corporations to cut the cost of labor. This meant industry went to places where rock bottom, often slave labor costs, and of course abandoned unionized places. It was the re-sweatshoppery of the world. This made CEOs very much richer and everyone else much poorer, even the laborers in the sweatshop countries such as China and India. Apart from the unfairness of this, it is also unsustainable. Who will buy all those ridiculously cheap products? The credit of the U.S. purchasers has run out. So we are now simply seeing a globalized version of the boom and bust cycle reaching a big bust. The U.S. abilities to affect that has been lost. The upside is not that the U.S. can still be a major player, but that the U.S. can cease to be an empire with all the discontents and dangers and distortions of any empire. So this is just someone's comment to some of the other people commenting on it. So a post-American world. The U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency is going out the window. The Webbot has been talking about this for many, many, many years, way before most other people even thought about this, by the way. We just had China join the basket of currencies and the IMF, the SDR, right? They're moving. They're not just going to dump us out on the curb, right? That's not the plan. Let's do a transition into it. However, once we're there, all these dollars floating around, we got a problem. U.S. Federal Reserve, buying back tons of our own treasuries because there's not enough people out there to buy them. So we're borrowing money, and the Federal Reserve is printing more money to essentially let us borrow. It just writes it on its balance sheet, but nonetheless, it's there. So I think we got economic problems of epic proportions coming to this country. That, I think, is what the conversation was. And it might be something along the lines of Mr. Trump. You know, if I'm President Obama, Mr. Trump, as you know, the numbers are a lot worse than we release. The unemployment's a lot worse than everybody knows. And we cannot sustain Social Security. We have some major problems we have to deal with. Or should I say you're going to have to deal with as the next president. These are serious, real problems that have to be dealt with. And by the way, printing tons of money for infrastructure and that kind of thing, we're not going to be able to do that. I know you did the campaign promises of that, and you're going to try, but I don't know that it's going to work. We have to tackle some of these problems, and unfortunately, the ball's in your court. I think the conversation may have went a little bit like that. Trump said, I'll let you ask him. Why wouldn't Trump want to say it? Because if Trump says it and it's bad news, which obviously I think it is, it's coming from him. Hey, wait a minute. You're going to you're the one that said you're going to make America great again. You've already saved jobs. You did this $50 billion deal the other day to supposedly create 50,000 jobs. Why are you talking like that? Right? I would say the same thing. Since Barack gave me that info, I'm going to relay it to you. By not saying it, you're going to go to him. Get it from him. Because if I say it, it came from me. I don't want it to come that way. He said it. I've been informed. I think you need to ask him about it. Strangely enough, no one has asked the man about it. We asked press secretary nonsense. Sorry, I can't reveal that, right? That's what he said. If it was good news, they would have been revealing it. They have to give us fake numbers now to make it look like there's good news. So if this was really good news, clearly we did it. But again, if it was good news, he wouldn't say America's facing a big problem. And the fact that Trump didn't repeat it, because if he thought this problem is fixable, think about this. If Trump thought the problem was fixable, well, that's okay. When I take over, I'm going to make America great again. And that's a little problem I'm going to have to work on. But that's okay. I got it. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to tackle that problem. And here's what the problem is. He didn't even want to talk about it. Which means what? I don't think we have a climate issue. I think we got a dollar and economy issue that's about to be rearing its ugly head again. And this time, the full body's coming out, not just the face. Okay? That's my opinion. We will see where this goes. Take care.